Harrison won the 1840 U.S. presidential election by winning 80% of the Electoral College vote. When he arrived in Washington, D.C. for his inauguration on March 4th, 1841, he was eager to show America that there was more to him than living in a log cabin and drinking hard cider all day. He was anxious to show off his intellect and prepared to give an over 8,000-word speech, which was carefully edited by fellow party member and good friend Daniel Webster. The inauguration took place outside the U.S. Capitol on a cold, rainy day. Harrison, despite being 68 years old, refused to wear a hat, gloves, or an overcoat when he delivered his speech. His 65-year-old wife, Anna, was too sick to travel to Washington, D.C. from their home in Ohio to make it to the inauguration. Harrison instead had his daughter-in-law, Jane Harrison, step in as acting First Lady for this event. Harrison was sworn into office by U.S. Chief Justice Roger Taney. Harrison delivered the longest inauguration speech in history, a record that still stands today. In his speech, Harrison promised to reestablish the Bank of the United States, reverse Jackson's executive spoil system, use the veto only if an act was considered unconstitutional, heavily rely on the U.S. Congress for legislative matters, and agree that slavery should be decided on the state's level and would only serve one term, and continue to observe the freedom of religion but remain vague on many other issues. The head of the Whig Party, Henry Clay, despite still being peeved about not winning his party's nomination back in December of 1839, worked hard behind and in front of the scenes to get Harrison elected, and thought he would have a huge presence in the White House and maybe a spot in his cabinet. Clay tried to weasel his way into Harrison's administration and violated one of his own rules of the party that insisted on removing the spoil system, and tried to not only get himself a cabinet position, but use his sway to fill it with those of his own choosing. Harrison did not appreciate his meddling and told him, "Mr. Clay, you forgot that I am the president." Harrison then appointed Clay's in-party rival, Daniel Webster, as the Secretary of State, which infuriated Clay to no end. Thomas Ewing was named Secretary of the Treasury, John Bell, the Secretary of War, George Edmund Badger, the Secretary of the Navy, Francis Granger was the Postmaster General. And to make Henry Clay happy, he appointed his protege, Jean Crétin, as Attorney General. For the next couple of weeks, Harrison spent all of his time not only trying to fill his cabinet and attending numerous social events, along with the horde of job seekers who flooded the White House looking for federal work. He tried to call Congress into an early session, but was rebutted by Henry Clay, who asked him if it was truly necessary. Harrison in return told Clay to not come to the White House again and only communicate with him through correspondences. Harrison caught a cold on March 26th after being exposed to the elements 2 days earlier when he went to a trip to the market without a winter coat or hat. The next day, his symptoms grew worse. His personal doctor gave him a mustard plaster for his chest and some strong herbal laxatives. The cold symptoms subsided, but Harrison developed pain in his sides, so they prescribed bloodletting and cupping to try and ease the pain. The doctor realized Harrison was suffering from pneumonia and gave him castor oil to purge his body. After 3 days, a team of doctors came to Harrison's bedside to work on the 68-year-old president to try and relieve his pneumonia symptoms. The doctors gave him laudanum, opium, camphor, wine, and brandy to relieve his pain. Harrison lingered on for several days. He developed a severe case of diarrhea, which made him even sicker. Some reports say a shaman was brought in to try and save the president through a magic elixir, which is ironic since he killed many a native during his military career. Harrison called in his vice president, John Tyler, to his bedside late Saturday night and told him, "Sir, I wish you to understand the true principles of the government. I wish them carried out. I ask nothing more." Harrison died a few hours later, a half hour after midnight, from a case of pneumonia. His wife Anna never made it to the White House. By the time she recovered from her illness and was ready to travel to Washington, D.C., she found out that her husband was dead. The very next day, John Tyler was sworn in as the new president on April 5th, 1841.